I have recently realized that I liked making videos and things and releasing them and like that. That's fun. But then things have started getting really fun when I realized that I can be creative not just in the things I'm writing, but in the life I'm living. So like right now, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm gonna do a new web series, it needs to enrich my life. Like it needs to add to my friendships. It needs to add to my life and my family. And so it's turned into where with every project I'm going, how can this actually make the relationships in my life stronger?
Hello, beautiful, creative people, and welcome to the Keep Creating podcast presented by Soundstripe, the podcast created by creators for creators. Every episode, we seek out successful creatives who dedicate their lives to pursuing a creative trade or career. We ask them some questions and soak in all the truth their stories seep. Also, we can package it up and provide more creatives like you the inspiration, education, and tools to grow in your own unique pursuit to keep creating. I'm Joel Porter, and I'm excited for the opportunity to host this show and dialogue with our guests about what creativity looks like in their lives. So, without any more delay, thanks so much for listening, and let's get started. At the end of the bizarre and colorful events featured in the 1971 film adaptation of Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, we find the bouncing factory owner, Willy Wonka, furiously explaining why the lifetime supply of chocolate promised to the winner of his moral trials will not be rewarded to Charlie. After listening to Wonka's fit of rage, Charlie's chaperone, Grandpa Joe, scolds Wonka and promises Charlie that whatever it takes, he will find a way to get revenge against Willy Wonka. But right before he's let out of the factory, and despite the fact that what he has in his hand would solve his family's financial problems for years to come, Charlie approaches Willy Wonka and gives him his everlasting gobstopper. Slowly, without looking, Wonka reaches over and puts his hand on the piece of candy and softly mutters, "So shines a good deed in a weary world." There are times our creative pursuits and goals overshadow the reason we create in the first place. We get swept up in our idea of success and forget that it's just as important to recognize what it is we're creating and adding to the world, and whether or not it's truly an addition to the world. And worst of all, there are times we forget to enjoy it. Brad Montague is a New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and the award-winning creative force behind Kid President. As an artist, Brad's illustrations are spread across the internet daily and can regularly be seen on newsstands in Joanna and Chip Gaines's The Magnolia Journal. His work has garnered millions of views, been translated into countless languages, and caught the attention of people like Beyonce, Tom Hanks, and even the Obama White House. His book, Becoming Better Grownups, will release from Avery Books on April 7th, 2020. Brad is the force behind Socktober, the worldwide annual drive connecting people to their local homeless shelters. Right now, Brad and his wife run the creative agency Montague Workshop and serve as a friendly bureau of imagination, working to reimagine the future through the stories people tell and the ways they're told. From large brands and events to projects with Cartoon Network, the Walt Disney Company, the Fred Rogers Center, and more, Montague Workshops is a joyfully rebellious breath of fresh air. With a special emphasis on finding ways kids and grown-ups can work together, their work is always about inspiring, encouraging, and entertaining. Let's get started. We need to figure this out.
Yeah.
If we do anything in this next hour, we're going to tell you.
So just to clarify where this came, he told me you grew up in
North Dakota.
Yeah. I found out in college you could buy land in North Dakota for $100. Did you know that?
No.
It was like a few years back. It was very cheap, and it was like the middle of nowhere.
Offended.
So I said, let's just buy $100 worth of land, whatever that is, a little patch of grass, and put a sign in North Dakota that says South Dakota stinks. And it's just like very pro North Dakota. The agenda is really mostly not, but
Right.
I don't know much about the Dakotas, and I apologize to any of your constituency that's in. I did not want this to be controversial. I'm not a controversial person.
It's not.
And here we are.
It's a running joke between anybody from the Dakotas.
Okay.
So
I would like to take this time to make peace with both Dakotas.
all right. There has been peace.
We will bring them
There's
together.
peace now.
And so this is off to a great start.
Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to talk with us. This is wonderful. Right now, we are live at Story 2019 with Whitney Houston playing in the background.
We were already having a moment, you and I, and then to have Whitney play in the background.
The punctuation mark at the end.
Yes.
That is the period.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Locking eyes.
We're here to talk a little bit about creativity. So, my first question to you, and this is how I start off every single show, is how do you describe yourself as a creative? How'd you get into this business?
So I am just a human being who wants to be loved.
I heard you say that at your talk last year, and that was like the line that stuck with me. I'm not kidding. From the whole conference last year.
It is literally, thank you. But I've always struggled with like, what is it that I do? Who am I? What am I making? Am I a writer? Because I don't think I'm a great writer. Am I a director? Because I like that, but I like to edit video, but it's very isolating. So I don't want to declare that I'm an editor because then everybody would be like, oh, he edits. And it hurts me. It's hard. To all you editors who are listening, because I know you probably have a lot.
Yeah, quite a few.
For a while, I'm an editor. And then it was, oh man, I need people. And it's very lonely. So I'm a storyteller who uses silly drawings sometimes videos, and sometimes spacesuits on stages.
That's wonderful. One of the things that really struck me about, so my first experience seeing anything that you worked on was Kid President. And then hearing you talk last year, it seemed like at the root of the stories that you're telling, there's a lot of humanity. There's a lot of human connectedness and elements that go into that. How did you get to that point where like being vulnerable was the most important part of your story?
I worked in news for a while. One of my first jobs out of college was running a camera for a local news station. And doing that was something that was really exciting to me because I'm like, oh, this is going to be on TV. And then you start seeing the story that you're putting on TV and it's about a car accident. And I became removed from it, realizing I just documented somebody's worst day and did not have interaction with them. Instead, I just showed the wreckage on TV for more people to experience their bad day. And so I quickly became aware of how can I still tell stories, but tell the kind of stories that are not just about somebody's bad day, but that I'm not showing up with the camera and putting it in their face to be like, what happened? Instead, I'm able to walk people through their bad day, whatever that is. And so with Kid President, it was a very much being able to invite the world to think about each other in a more childlike way.
Yeah.
And it opened up the world to where I was able to walk alongside and still am, walk alongside people through good days, dark days, but we're just there. I'm there to witness whatever you're doing.
So now I want to talk about the act of doing that. When you're with people, when you're trying to tell someone's story, when you're creating a story and trying to relay that experience of, hey, let's dig into every moment. Let's be there. Let's witness. Like, what is the mindset that you have to have, or how can somebody who's listening practice that?
One thing that's hard is if you are in filmmaking, for instance, you show up with a camera and maybe you have a crew and you sort of do have to have a storyboard, right? But if you're doing documentary and the story shifts, you have to be aware, not so precious about the story you wanted to tell, but become very protective of the story that wants to be told. So I want to make sure that at the end of it all, the person that we're with or the people we're with, when it's said and done, they feel like, yeah, that's me. That feels like what that was.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, we were just recently I traveled this past summer to different spots in the country, and we filmed kids that were making their community brighter in some way. And is initially just kind of like showing up and seeing what they're doing. But then it became a lot richer the more I got to know the kids and see their struggles, their enthusiasm, the things they found funny, the things that like really made them come alive on camera. And it was mostly when the camera was off that they suddenly became themselves. So it was getting to that point where everybody has their shoulders down and they can just be who they are. And that's when things came to life.
Regarding your creative process and when you're trying to tell these stories and actually unlocking that real story in someone else, like what is the process that you go through to bring that creativity, that opportunity for creativity to life?
Early on, I'd hoped that I could have a creative habit in which I would like show up and I'd have a studio and I'd occasionally paint and then sit at the piano and write something and then get my camera and just go out and film. There'd be this effortless ease at which I could make. And that's not been true, but it has been more of a habit in that it is a response to whatever's happening. So my process is trying to creatively respond to whatever's happening internally with me and around me wherever I find myself. So as part of our recent travel series, I ended up at a space that's a retreat for kids who have a family member with a terminal illness. So it's the Lighthouse Family Retreat. It's this beautiful thing. They set up on the beach, and all the families there have a kid with a terminal illness. And I then became emotionally involved in it when I started thinking about my own kids, I think about my own family, my own mortality, and being there around my birthday coming up. And it's just suddenly, I had this personal investment in making sure that the people watching felt that same kind of urgency to live, that same kind of delight in breathing that I met in the kids.
Yeah.
So it's a habit of being responsive to what is happening in you and around you.
Yeah.
Is the process.
So within that process, it sounds like by itself, that's a motivator. That's something that gets you motivated to continue to live a certain way and to create. Is there anything else that you can recommend for creatives to push that motivation, that idea where, no, I should really be doing this? You know, obviously, like you just said, death can be a motivator. Like, what else motivates you?
I have recently realized that I liked making videos and things and releasing them, and like that's fun. But then things have started getting really fun when I realized that I can be creative not just in the things I'm writing, but in the life I'm living. So, like right now, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to do a new web series, it needs to enrich my life. Like it needs to add to my friendships. It needs to add to my life and my family. And so it's turned into where with every project, I'm going, how can this actually make the relationships in my life stronger? Like my own relationships with my wife, with my kids, with all of my friends. Like, can I create not just a video, but create a world in which we're living and walking and breathing? And that makes it a motivator where I start realizing it's not just something that's going to be happening on a screen.
Sure.
It's going to be a space I'm going to be living in.
Sounds like in order to do that, you have to prioritize what it is you want to add to or what's important.
Yes. What do you want to add? Like you are going to add a note into the symphony there. So even as small as looking online of like social media, you can see everybody's kind of adding their note to the symphony. They're adding a little thing. But what's the thing I'm gonna add? Like what kind of environment am I gonna create on there? So, sometimes it's silly and it's just like fun, and I love that. And then sometimes it's okay, let's create something where we're able to be vulnerable and talk. So like recently, I started a hotline where I've been doing web comics, and I thought, well, what if I had a web comic you could actually call into? And so I created this little guardian angel who has a help desk, and you can call and leave a message, and he's going to answer it. And I got over 200 messages already just in a couple of days. And I thought like maybe it'll be some silly ones. And a lot of them are people going like, oh, this is real. And then they hang up. But then a lot of them have been very big. Like, I just lost my job. I don't know what to do. Like, how am I going to do this? Or hey, I saw this number online. I'm a dad and I don't know how to take care of myself, much less my kids. What do I do?
Wow.
And it's very emotional. One girl was crying. You could only make out a few words. And you start to realize how much we can intersect in each other's lives and how much it matters. And it really starts to inform, okay, well, this matters. Let's actually do something with it.
So how did you learn how to prioritize those things? Like what was your journey into figuring out what it was you wanted to create? You know, answering the question that you brought up, what do you want to put into the world? What's your symphony note?
One thing is I kept constantly trying to do it and missing the note. And even still, like as far as craft, there's a way I want my drawings to look, but they just don't come out the way I want. But I'm still trying. And even my videos, it's like, that's not, that's like the poor man's Terrence Malick. That's not, like that's silly. That's not, but it's my note. It's what I added that day. But it's constantly showing up and then always realizing, I didn't nail it, but I at least made something. I'm getting closer to the thing that is the expression of who I am. It is my thumbprints. It's got all that. And I don't think I've landed there yet, but I keep getting closer. And that's the important thing that I want I really try to push with when I visit classrooms, because I've spent a lot of time like in elementary schools, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and making sure that they don't lose that spirit of just make a mark on the paper, like just do something.
Yeah.
Because if they lose it, then they're going to spend a whole lifetime trying to remember that their mark matters. And it's become something I've realized is true with 4th graders and 40-year-olds and beyond.
So is it that self-awareness is something that you seek so that you can make art truer? Like a more authentic version of your creative ability? Or is it the reverse? Is creativity showing you or giving you an avenue towards a clear vision of who you are?
I think they dance together.
Okay.
For me, I find that the more I learn about who I am and what I make, the more what I make helps inform. But my identity is not in the things I make. Like I'm not a Kid President video.
Right.
I am pieces of it. One of my favorite conversations, we got to do a video with the Schultz family, Charles Schultz's family, and his son was based after Pigpen. And so he's talking, he's like, yeah, like they always say like, oh, you're Pigpen. He's like, well, partly, I was a messy kid. He's like, I rode a dirt bike, but I'm not Pigpen. And he's like, it's also a lot of people look at his dad and they're like, oh, your dad was Charlie Brown. And he's like, no, my dad wasn't Charlie Brown. My dad was also Snoopy sometimes. And he was also a critic like Lucy. And he also like loved comics and felt like they were an art, but it was a toy piano, like how Schroeder was. And so he said, if you want to look at who my dad was, look at all of his kids. And I think that that's how we are. All of the things that we create are little pieces of us, but they're not us.
Yeah.
We're more than all of that combined.
People, my people. If you've listened before, this is the part of the show where I bring your attention to the amazing music featured on today's show and give a quick shout out to the artist that created it. You can actually license today's song, Hawkins High in 85 by Fairlight, by simply heading to soundstripe.com/keepcreating. There you'll find a custom playlist of all the songs we use in our podcast made just to inspire you. Once again, just visit the URL, soundstripe.com/keepcreating. Cool. Yeah. No doubt. Now, let's get back to the fun. If you're trying to get into a creative space, or even thinking about like being a creative person, like that being your profession, is there a routine that you have to go through? Do you have a daily routine? Are you like rigid with your habits? Are you rigid with when you write or when you draw or, when you're working on things?
Well, I'll tell you, some of my favorite artists are people who actually are doing it as a passion outside of their normal job. Like some of my favorite video makers online right now are actually people that are working at a job they're unhappy with. And then so on the weekends, they're shooting these incredible short films that are inspired and raw and honest, and that the people they're working with would never release. And there's so much life there. And so there is a beauty in you finding that space where there's that lump in your throat, like Robert Frost talked about poems or a lump in your throat, like that thing that you just have to say and make. I love anytime somebody gets to that point. I also have a great respect for those writers and people that can show up on a consistent basis with the habit. For myself, I've had to grow into a habit of drawing and writing something every day.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's short, sometimes it actually is good, but it's always something. And it's become such that it is like oxygen for me. It is a space in which I can feel I'm coming more alive.
Do you still feel resistance in those moments to not show up?
So I have a book coming out in April, and it was supposed to come out, I think, 4 years ago. And it's because the whole time I could have written anything other than the book I was supposed to write right then. I could have written anything, screenplays, whatever. But the thing in front of me, I was terrified to write and couldn't, and struggled and fought. I don't know why. I still don't. But there is always that resistance, and it is always true that that's the thing that you're supposed to write the most.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about the book?
So it's called Becoming Better Grownups. I interviewed 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders about how I could be a better grownup, and they told me. And then I learned a lot about how they see us. And then I interviewed people over the age of 100, people who've actually grown up. And I found this great, bold beauty in what it could look like to grow old well. And I think it has a lot to do with becoming more like a child. And the elderly people that I met changed my life because they were either living with a lot of despair and regret, or they were living with a great lightness and acceptance and were reaping rewards of like these relationships they've cultivated over the years. So the book's about that quest to become a better grown-up.
I'm sure it's just packed full of wisdom. I'm actually really interested about just digging into your conversations with some of the elderly people that you spoke with. It wasn't like a sense of this doesn't matter. It was more of a sense of it's okay.
Oh yeah. Like one of the guys in the book, he lived in my community, and I would go to him and I a couple of times would share how terrified I was or disappointed that things weren't going well. And he would always laugh, and it ticked me off. I was like, dude, this is serious.
Yeah.
Like I am having a hard time. And he had this perspective of, I know that that's cute, that you're afraid of that, but it actually doesn't matter that much. And it reminded me of what actually does, like what actually is important. So being able to zoom out and have that kind of voice in your life that can remind you, hey, I know that feels important right now, but there's a bigger picture. It has given me a bit more freedom to actually enjoy the process of growing.
Interesting. So in that process of growing, I assume there have been some failures.
Yeah, it's been easy. It's been great. Yeah.
Would you be willing to share an example of like a major failure that you've had and how you rebounded and, maybe either learned something from it or were able to like overcome that fear of that failure and become lighter?
There have been a couple of really big ones that were kind of took the wind out of my sails, partly because I put all of my hope in that this is going to work out. So I worked on a children's show for a bit that was a major children's network. It was a TV show. And it was a thrilling idea. Like getting to work on this was something I was excited about. The creative team, like top tier talent, and getting to learn the craft of writing a screenplay, of casting a show, of actually the math of writing a good comedy script was fascinating to learn. And then one day, it just all got taken away. Not because it wasn't good or we weren't hitting the mark. It was just, you know what? We've rebranded and this is where we're landing. And all the shows under this one person have all gone away. And
Oh, man.
we'd love for you to pitch the show again. You can start all over. We'd written 30-something drafts of the pilot. And so to spend years of your life working on something no one will see was painful to me. But it taught me a lot about accepting this joy of creating, even if it doesn't work, even if it doesn't land on TV like it was supposed to, and yet accepting that maybe an audience didn't get to experience that, but I did, and I'm a stronger artist because of that. But it still hurts.
Well, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, great. I'm on a podcast. Let me talk about that.
Well, I apologize. Do you consider yourself a mentor? Do you actively partake in like mentoring people?
I'm wanting to now more than ever. I've tried.
Okay.
I work with a lot of younger people, younger artists, who reach out. Like just a second ago, there were some young people that were just that were working on YouTube, that was talking to them about their cameras and like what they're working to make. I love that. Part of the process of writing the book helped me fall in love with that even more because seeing just how much that matters, having those people that can help you navigate life, that we all need that. So I've tried to surround myself, and I'm trying to even reach out to the people older than me that don't make growing old look depressing and say, I like you. I want to learn from you. Will you help me? And they've all said yes.
So as creatives and as, we grow older as creatives, I feel like we just have an inherent responsibility to pass along. I think it's just kind of an innate thing for creatives to convey the things that we've learned through our pieces, through our work. What do you think is a really important thing, or what's something that if you were tasked with being a mentor, if somebody came up to you and said, hey, I really like you. Can you please help me be more like you? Can you help me to grow into the person I'm supposed to become? Where would you start?
So I'll tell you what I usually say, because a lot of times it doesn't start that pure. A lot of times it starts out and they say, hey, I'm just starting a YouTube channel and I want to learn how to do it. I want to learn how to get followers. I want to learn how to do this. And I love when that happens because it becomes a great starting point. And then I love turning the conversation into, okay, so what do you want to say? What's the thing you want to say to people? And then it becomes more about who they are as a person, what matters to them enough, and tearing away that desire for followers and fans and then getting into, but what's the thing inside you really have to share? Let's get to that. And walking with them as they learn that. And that's where it gets really fun.
Yeah.
Because there's not a magic wand where I can say, yeah, you're going to do this. And then boom, you did it.
Right.
But instead, I love the idea of 20 years from now, there's a whole army of young people who grew alongside this and were able to see, this is how you tell a story. This is how you walk with people. This is how you make things that matter. That's exciting to me.
Speaking to the idea of being a mentor, what do you think are and young creatives? What do you think are some of the things that young creatives are going through now? What are their biggest challenges in today's world?
I think that the challenges for creators today are the same as they've always been. They're just dressed up in different clothes. Things like the industry there's things like particulars about the industry or how things are released or all of that's different. But at the core, it's the inner of who a person is, why they're creating, what the stories they want to tell, how they're wanting to connect, that has not changed. And one of the big challenges is the isolation that we have for a lot of creators where there's not a community around them to help them rise up to be the best artist they can be. And even I think turning down the walls between some of those great filmmakers, writers, musicians that are older than us, instead of having them on a pedestal, let's actually look at them and say, help me figure this out. Help me navigate these waters. Walk with me through this.
So like that challenge is things being too far removed and not accessible?
I think, yeah, as much as we've become connected, we have become disconnected from one another. And so I think it's super exciting right now that somebody can release a song, release a video, release a comic, and it can reach millions of people. But we can lose ourselves and each other in the midst of all that noise. So I think community is probably the biggest hurdle for creators right now of how do we create healthy communities around each other. You should be doing this for a long time. Every person listening to this, like, this should not be a phase in your life.
Yeah.
Like, you should be sharing all the incredible things you have to share for a very long time.
And so in forming those communities, what would you look for? Someone
who believes in you as a person, believes in your work and what you have to say, and believes in the fact that we're not in competition, but that we are companions in trying to create things that enrich and nourish the world. And that's part of that's a big reason what's kept me coming back to this community here at this event, and is because this is an event that nourishes that spirit.
Yeah.
And so every person that I've interacted with, this realization that we're shipmates, that we're together in this mess of going, okay, you want to make something cool? Let's do it. Like, oh, she's making videos. Oh, she's doing fashion. Or, oh, that guy's rocking it. Like, let's celebrate each other's success instead of, that guy has a book coming out. Like, my book's going to do better.
Yeah.
You know, a big central idea in that book has been learned along this way. And it's that the reason we're all here is to fly and help each other fly. And that's the goal.
So just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
The first being, if you got a chance to get into a time machine and go back.
I'm with you. I'm here.
And
listening.
Find yourself and completely screw up the space-time continuum.
Done it.
What is something that you would tell yourself? What is a piece of advice that you would say?
You know, it's so funny you asked that. You know, one of the things I brought with me this year is a newspaper from the future. Did you know that?
I had no idea.
No, seriously. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I'm giving out newspapers that I brought back from the future. It's just there's a problem that in order to protect the time-space continuum, things have been redacted.
Oh,
so
of course.
There's photos that are deleted. There's big words. So there's great news on the front cover, but we don't know who made that happen. And so the thing is we all have to fill in those blanks and actually create that future. And so we all had the chance to do that. What's funny is I've actually obsessed over this question before.
Have you really?
What would I say to younger me? And I've thought about advice. I've thought about like investing in different things or don't do that, like, or that kind of warnings. But I really feel like probably the best thing any of us could say to earlier versions of ourselves, including should we show up future version to us right now, would be to lean in, whisper into that person's ear, enjoy it.
Wow.
Enjoy it. I think about fourth grade me, and if I could go back right before starting that class of fourth grade, all of the terror and fun, all the things that I could protect myself from, it would be helpful to have an older version of me go, just enjoy it.
Oh, I love that.
Enjoy
answer.
it.
Enjoy
so
it.
right now, I'm hoping that a future me could show up and say that, and I could just relax my shoulders and say, whatever comes, I'm going to enjoy it.
Love that. I do. That's a great answer. I wouldn't have thought of that. I would have been like, Hey, remember
Invest
that one
in
thing
Apple.
yeah.
Start adult coloring books.
Yeah.
Those are really popular.
Well, yeah, now they are.
Yeah. Get into that.
So we talked about how as you create things, little pieces of yourself get put into these stories that you make. Have you ever seen yourself in someone else's work? Like, is there a character or a cartoon or like someone from a parable that you're like, oh my gosh, that's me?
Oh man. So as a kid, that's like one of my favorite things to watch TV and then go, I'm him.
Oh yeah.
You
my
do
whole
that.
family. And then you'd fight about it with your brothers and sisters.
Yeah, no, I'm him.
Yeah.
No, I'm him. But even now, I think recently though, I have been, there's certain characters I think I could aspire to be. Like you would want to be as noble as the dad in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Sure.
You'd want to like be that, or as magical as Mary Poppins, like all that kind of stuff. But recently, we were reading Frog and Toad.
Yeah.
Frog and Toad, the best books. There's one story where I think Toad, they're going swimming, and Frog loves to swim naked, and Toad has a swimsuit, and he's so embarrassed he doesn't want anybody to see him in this swimsuit. And the whole story is all the animals go, "What's going on? What's happening?" It's like, "Oh, Toad's in his swimsuit. He doesn't want anybody to see." And it's this children's story, and all the animals are gathering to see him, and it ends with them finally seeing Toad in his swimsuit, and they all laugh. And I'm reading this with my kids, and I was just floored. And I was like, I feel his shame of not wanting to be seen in a swimsuit. And then we also were reading Frog and Toad too. And there's another story where Frog and Toad realize like Toad is sad, and instead of just being like cheer up, Frog just keeps showing up, and is just always there, writes little letters to him, and it just was so refreshing to see that there's sadness in a kid's book, and accepting that this is a feeling you're going to feel sometimes, and that Frog and Toad were okay with that, but they weren't going to let the other one go through it alone.
Yeah.
And so, as much as I want to be Willy Wonka or any other fictional character, Yoda, without being goblin-like, but wise, I think I'm Toad.
Oh my gosh.
Sad and shameful. Don't look at me.
I don't get that at
with
all.
my shirt off.
But I respect it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just decided, hey, I'm going to be on the Soundstripe podcast. I should be honest.
I
Frog and
appreciate
Toad
that
it is.
so much. This is a place of safety. This is a place of vulnerability.
Thank you.
We're good here. Before I ask the last question, you told us that you have a new book coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Where can we find that in April? And where else can we see what you're working on? And what are you currently working on?
Oh, man. There's some... It feels like I've been working nonstop for the past couple of years, and I'm finally able to share things. So it feels good because I've been editing video, tethered to a laptop, really writing a book, and finally I get to be with people. So I apologize if I've seemed over eager to talk to a human being. But
I love it. It makes me feel great. I'm like, holy cow.
But the book comes out April 7th. It's going to be really fun. We're doing little events all over the country when that comes out. We've got choirs that are going to be part of the tour. So there's kids and elderly people singing together. It's going to be just a joyous time where it's not just a book, but like a moment in time where we can really celebrate kids and grownups blending their voices together. So I'm just really excited about releasing that into the world. And I have been writing and directing some new series for Soul Pancake on YouTube that'll be coming out here in the fall. And those will be popping up soon. But I'm on Instagram at Brad Montague, releasing silly things all the time. There's an Angels help desk you can call.
What's that number?
So I'll have to look it up. I can though. But yeah, you call the number, and I'm interacting with the people through that. You can leave comics. You'll be involved in one of my comics.
Okay, here's my last question.
Yes.
It's a doozy.
Ooh.
You do a lot of these, I'm sure. You talk to people. Occasionally.
I do now.
Okay.
When I was writing, I couldn't.
Just kind of isolated.
Wasn't allowed to.
What is one question that you wish I would have asked you?
Oh man. How'd I get so lucky to interview you, Brad? Or where'd you get that hat? Or
It's a great hat, by the way. I'm a hat collector. Everyone at Soundstripe knows. I come in with a different one.
You know, you had great questions, though. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
You're great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you covered it. I mean,
Wow.
there's more we could share, I'm sure, but
we could talk for a long time, but I want to respect your time. It's story. You got to go talk to people.
I think we should be more concerned about the audience's time. Mine. I don't know if they want to hear anything else here from me.
I could listen to you for hours.
There is a wonderful crowd that's gathered, and I think the audience, they should be able to hear them. I mean, can we hear you?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Can we hear you? Yeah.
Like people, just so good to watch a podcast.
All right. Well, then I'm going to do something different because you kind of like copped out of that question.
I did.
You did.
So,
Is there anybody out here who has one question to ask Brad right now? We're at Story right now, and we're in front of about 20 people. Thousands. We have a question right here. What is your favorite word?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. I'll say a word that I like. I mean, the word banana's good, but I think exuberance, because it captures something that I am drawn to. You know it when you see it, you feel it. Joy is a word that I think has gotten bought and sold and moved around. But exuberance is a word that I'm hoping that I can be years from now, super old, just ridiculously super old. And they'll be like, that is an exuberant old man. Like that would be great. Because a lot of the elderly people that I got to spend time with, the ones, they had such a magic about them, whether they would just, like one lady kept grabbing my leg and she'd just go, wow, we're here. And I want to be able to be like that. Wow, we're here. Instead of, hey, I'm still here.
Well, let's try for that.
Yeah. Super duper old.
Yeah.
And exuberant.
104. That's my oldest relative. 104.
Wow. So you've got this running in the family.
I mean, cross your fingers.
You're good. That's good.
Well, Brad, thanks so much for coming on to our Keep Creating podcast. And you have been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You're very wise. You're getting to Yoda stage. So once again, thank you so much. And can we give Brad a round of applause, please? Thank you. I want to thank Brad again for being on the show, and I hope his words have left you wanting to create something beautiful for this world and have nudged you a little closer to the realization that we're all just humans wanting to be loved. Make sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss future episodes, and help us build a healthy and collaborative community of creators by sharing this with someone who could use some words of inspiration today. And lastly, I want to thank our team here at Soundstripe for making the show possible. If you don't know who we are, Soundstripe is a subscription-based music licensing company that provides unlimited music to subscribers for all video and creative needs. If you need music for your podcast, YouTube channel, vlog, radio show, film, anything, go to soundstripe.com to learn more about our amazing library of music and sound effects. We also create and curate a ton of inspirational and educational material that is featured on our blog. With everything we do, our mission is to keep creatives creating. So once again, thank you all for joining us this week. Hope you tune in next time. And remember, no matter what, keep creating.